Welcome back to the Languages Pedagogy Podcast. Today's recap is not just about ADHD. It is about misunderstanding. It's about children who are called lazy when they're actually overwhelmed. It is about students who are called disruptive when their brains are desperately trying to regulate. It is about parents who feel lost, teachers who feel unprepared, and learners who grow up believing there is something wrong with them because school never learned how to understand them. Episodes 219 and 220, featuring Eliza Dadson, gave us one of the most powerful conversations we have had on this podcast. The title says it clear. ADHD isn't a deficit. It's a different operating system. Why schools keep getting it wrong? And honestly, that title captures the soul of the episode. Because ADHD is not a lack of intelligence. It is not a lack of effort. It is not bad parenting. It is not a child trying to make your life difficult. ADHD is a different way of processing the world. And the tragedy is this. Many schools are still trying to run every child through the same system, the same expectations, the same sitting still, the same listening style, the same worksheet, the same assessment, the same silence. So this is how we start this episode. So as I always say, sit down comfortably, get yourself a coffee, and let's get started. Not every brain learns the same way. Some brains need movement, other ones need structure. Some brains need emotional safety. Others, shorter instructions. Or some of them need to stand up to focus. And some of the brains need to move their hands, shake their legs, talk through the task, or look away in order to listen better. And this is where Eliza's message becomes so important. She reminded us that ADHD has been deeply misunderstood for decades. Historically, ADHD was seen mostly through the lens of hyperactive boys. The child who cannot sit still, interrupts, calls out, moves too much, talks too much, and does not behave. But that old view is painfully incomplete. ADHD is not only external behavior. It is not only hyperactivity. It is not only distraction. It is executive function. It is emotional regulation, working memory, or just task initiation. So many things that are actually just involved in here. Time for, or time awareness also. Transition difficulty. So many things that are involved in it. Eliza gave us a powerful metaphor from Russell Barkley. ADHD can feel like having a Ferrari engine with bicycle brakes. Think about that. A Ferrari engine. Powerful, fast, creative, energetic, full of potential, right? But bicycle brakes. Difficulty stopping, difficulty in pausing, thinking before acting, difficulty slowing down enough to match the pace of a traditional classroom. And this metaphor matters because it changes how we see the child. Instead of saying, "Why won't this child behave?" we begin asking, "What kind of support does this child's nervous system need?" Instead of saying, "Why are they not paying attention?" we begin asking, "What is competing for their attention?" Or, "Why can't they just sit still?" And let's start asking, does movement help them process? That shift is everything. One of the most important points Eliza made was that movement is not the enemy of attention. Movement can be the gateway to attention. Many teachers see a child moving their leg, wiggling in their chair, standing, tapping, or shifting position, and immediately think they're distracted. But Eliza explained that for many ADHD learners, movement produces dopamine. It helps the brain stay engaged. It helps the child listen longer. It helps them process information. So when we tell that child, "sit still," we may actually be taking away the very strategy they were using to focus. That is a big wake-up call for teachers. And because in many classrooms, stillness is confused with learning. But a quiet body does not always mean an engaged mind, right? I believe you all agree on that one. And a moving body does not always mean a distracted mind. Sometimes the child who's moving is listening, or the child staring at you silently has already disappeared mentally. That is why we need to stop judging learning only by posture. A child can be standing and learning, or moving and learning, also drawing and listening, or looking away and still absorbing every word. This is where flexible teaching becomes powerful. Eliza encouraged teachers to bring more movement into the classroom through brain breaks, active pauses, standing tasks, walking discussions, outdoor reading, think, pair, share activities, balance movement, and cross-body exercises. And these do not need to be complicated. A brain break can be simple. Stand on one leg or touch your nose. Stretch your arms. Walk and talk. The goal is not chaos. The goal is regulation here. So, as we all know, movement helps the nervous system reset, right? It helps the brain re-engage. It gives students a chance to process instead of just passively receive information. And honestly, this is not only good for ADHD students, it is good teaching. Neurodiverse friendly strategies often help everyone. Another powerful idea from the conversation was that ADHD is not just in the brain, it affects the whole body. Eliza talked about sensory sensitivity, clothing textures, sounds, food texture, physical discomfort, emotional intensity, noise, even light or body awareness. This is critical because many adults underestimate how intense the world can feel for a child with ADHD. A chair might feel uncomfortable. A tag in a shirt might become unbearable. Or a noise outside might capture the brain completely. So many things that can be there, but we actually do not recognize. And if we do not understand this, we misread behavior. Sometimes we call it defiance or immaturity or sometimes drama, right? But sometimes it is dysregulation, or sometimes it is overload. And this is where emotional safety becomes central. Children with ADHD often receive far more negative feedback than their peers. For sure, you all know that, right? We're in the classroom and suddenly there's one student, and we're immediately going right after that student says, "Hey, stop moving," or "Pay attention. You forgot again?" Huh? Does it sound familiar? Does it ring a bell? Did you do it? Leave us in the comments below. If you did it, well, it's part of a process that all of us as teachers needs to go through. We need to learn. That's why we have people like Eliza sharing their experiences, so we avoid making those type of mistakes and being that stone in the road to a kid. So over time, those words that we mention become identity. The child does not just think, "I made a mistake." No. They begin to think, "I am the mistake." And that is when things get dangerous. Because school does not only teach subjects, school teaches children who they believe they are. A child who is constantly corrected may grow into an adult who carries shame. Or a child who is constantly misunderstood may grow into an adult who believes they are broken. And that is why Eliza's message was so deeply touching. Meet the child where they are. Not where the system says they should be. Not where the textbook says they should be. Not where their chronological age says they should be. But where they actually are. Eliza also explained that ADHD learners may be behind in some executive function skills while being ahead in other areas. A child may have incredible vocabulary, deep emotional intuition, and creative thinking, but still struggle to organize a school bag, start homework, transition to bedtime, or remember basic routines. That contradiction confuses adults sometimes. We say, "But they're so smart. Why can they do this simple thing?" And the answer is intelligence and executive function are not the same thing. A child can be brilliant and still need scaffolding. A child can be gifted and still need reminders. A child can understand complex ideas and still struggle to start a task. This is the paradox of ADHD. The strengths are often very strong. The weaknesses are often very weak. And both can exist in the same child. That is why the solution is not punishment. The solution is structure, scaffolding, predictability, visual support, chunked instructions, movement, a positive feedback, repair after dysregulation, and most importantly, this one, compassion. Eliza also spoke about hyperfocus and distraction. This is another misunderstood part of ADHD. People often say, how can they have ADHD if they can focus on video games, drawing, music, animals, sports, or something they love for hours? But ADHD is not a simple attention deficit. It is difficulty regulating attention. The ADHD brain may struggle to focus on low interest tasks, but it can hyperfocus intensely on something meaningful, exciting, creative, or urgent. That is why interest matters so much. When ADHD learner cares about something they can go deep, they can make connections other students do not make, actually. They can create, build, perform, improvise, solve, and imagine at a very high level. Eliza connected ADHD with creativity, music, comedy, drama, art, problem solving, and multiple intelligences. That part of the conversation was beautiful because it moved ADHD away from shame and toward possibility. We all know. Eliza told us ADHD learners are not empty. Sometimes they're just overflowing with ideas or energy, emotions, or connections. The challenge is helping them channel that power, not crush it or silence it or not punish it out of them. Channel it. This brings us to another one. To one of the biggest criticisms in the episode. The traditional classroom. Yes, here you have it. Traditional classrooms often fail ADHD learners because they are built around compliance. Sit-in, silence, passive learning, long instructions, memorization, and constant assessment. And as we discuss, the modern system is often obsessed with results. You know that. Scores, data, progress levels, evidence, tests, a whole bunch of scores. Yes, I know, and we all know assessment matters. Of course it does. But when assessment becomes more important than the child's nervous system, confidence, curiosity, self-worth, and emotional development, something has gone wrong. Eliza reminded us that teachers are under pressure too. And it's true, because we have these scores, right? This is not about blaming teachers only. Many teachers were never properly trained in ADHD. Many are overwhelmed. Many are trying to meet curriculum demands, parents' expectations. Yes, administrative pressure, and classroom realities all at once. But awareness changes practice. Once a teacher understands why a child behaves a certain way, small adjustments can create massive change. Then, in part two, the conversation moved into technology. This was important because we're now raising and teaching children in a world of phones, tablets, gaming, AI, algorithms, instant entertainment, and constant stimulation. Eliza was clear. Technology can be useful, but it can also make attention and regulation harder, especially when it becomes passive entertainment instead of skill building. Gaming and endless screen stimulation can affect dopamine patterns. It can make boredom feel unbearable. It can make transitions harder. It can weaken opportunities for children to develop executive function through real world problem solving. Before phones become part of our bodies, children had more chances to be bored, to create games, to get lost and figure things out, to talk face to face, to negotiate friendships, to move outside, explore, to solve problems. Those experiences build executive function. But when the device becomes the default regulator, children may lose practice in self regulation. Now, Eliza did not shame parents, and this was very important. She acknowledged the reality. Parenting a child with ADHD can be exhausting. Sometimes parents need a break. Sometimes giving the child a device is the only way to breathe for a moment. And that honesty matters. Parents do not need more shame. They need guidance. The message was not never use technology. The message was use it wisely. Eliza also shared her personal story publicly for the first time in this kind of a space. She spoke about her husband, a man she loved deeply, a man with ADHD, a man who had been misunderstood in school, who had been called lazy, unfocused, too many times, too much. A man who left school early, but later became successful, driven, creative, capable, adventurous, and deeply alive. She did not try to change him. That sentence stayed with me, actually. I didn't try to change him. That's what she said. And that is love. That is acceptance. That is what so many ADHD children and adults are still looking for. Someone who does not look at them as a project to fix. Someone who does not say, be normal. Someone who says, I want to understand how your brain works. Her husband regulated himself through extreme sports. Downhill skating, surfing, skydiving, windsurfing, base jumping, and speed flying. For him, risk was not just risk. It was regulation, present. It was calm. It was where his brain felt alive and focused. And in 2024, during a speed flying accident in Switzerland, he passed away. Eliza became widow. And in the same year, she launched her business. That part of the story was heavy, but also incredibly powerful, because she had a choice. She could stay only in sadness, or she could carry his legacy into the world. And she chose legacy, education, advocacy. She chose to change the narrative for the future boys and girls who may grow up with ADHD. That's not just professional work. That is sacred work. And to everyone listening, remember this. The child who challenges you may also be the child who needs you most. The child who moves may be trying to focus, or the one who interrupts may be afraid of losing the thought, or the ones who melt down may be overwhelmed, not manipulative. The child who cannot start may not be refusing. The child who seems different may be carrying gifts the system has not learned how to recognize yet. So let's stop asking, how do we make every child fit the classroom? And let's start asking, how do we make classroom fit more children? That is where real education begins. Until next time, keep teaching with heart, keep learning with humility, and keep building classrooms where every mind has a place to belong.